Welcome everybody to the next episode of the God Roll Podcast, episode 4. Today's episode is unfortunately without Josh. He is currently occupied. He just got back from vacation, so he's a little drained. So it'll just be me and Iain today, but that's okay. We got a little bit to talk about today because today's topic is Space Marine 2. Specifically, we're going to go over the lore, so everybody who wants to play this game and understand what's going on, will understand what's going on. So this is mainly geared towards newer people and anybody who needs a refresher on lore. Now, I'm not a lore master or anything, but I do know more than Iain here, so I think it's and I've been in the hobby since 2018, 2019. So I've been here a little bit. I've been into it for a long time. I've absorbed the lore like it's scripture.
Absorbing all of that knowledge for the Emperor.
Exactly.
Or are you a heretic?
No, I'm for the Emperor.
So you're loyalist. Okay.
Yeah. Dark Angels.
Okay.
Dark Angels.
Dark Angels? All right,
Yeah,
preach. We still haven't figured out a chapter for me yet. It could be Adeptist. It could be Heretic. It could be Orcs. It could be Tau. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing to do is just to wait until you hear like lore about a certain chapter and it just hits you. You'll just be like, you'll immediately go, oh, okay, yeah, I want to, that's my shit. Basically, for me, it was like the first army that made me want to build, or the first chapter that made me want to build an army. So like I learned the lore, and then like the lore made me think of an idea for an army that isn't actually like a custom army that's not in the game currently. And I was like, oh shit, homebrewed Dark Angels chapter, who are just the Risen, the Fallen Angels, which we'll get to at some point in one of these episodes, for those who don't know. So yeah, it's very cool.
See, I vibe with the Black Templars first because of those Flash Gits animations that came out, Furry Crusade.
They do a good job of showcasing Black Templars.
Like it's funny because it's just like brother, avenge me, brother. Like that was all funny, but after I started watching some videos about the Black Templars, how they like to break the rules a little bit and whatnot, I'm just like, huh. So they're the stereotypical holy crusaders. They call it, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Black Templars call the Emperor the God Emperor.
Yeah, they are one of the few chapters that vehemently think that the Emperor is a god, because not all Space Marines believe that, and we'll get into that later.
That was my segue to that, because who is this Emperor, and why do I always have to go for the Emperor? I'm not a heretic, I swear. Like, we're still trying to figure that out, but why is it let's see, the heavy class in SM2, his emote wheel on one of his emotes, it says engaging standard issue morale booster for the Emperor. Why are we saying this all the time? I need to know who this Emperor is.
So, the God Emperor of Mankind, or just simply the Emperor, or the Emperor of Man, just many titles. He is what we call a perpetual. I kept forgetting what the name was. We were calling it Immortals the other night, but it's perpetuals. So perpetuals are just certain human beings who are inexplicably born or created with never-ending life. So they can still die and such, but they, I believe they could become back and reborn in some way. So no matter what, like, they can't really die of natural causes or anything, but if they are killed, they'll just come back eventually, hence perpetual. So the Emperor is one of them.
But how? Like, does their body just regenerate or something?
That is something I'm not too privy on. I believe if you would like to go into a deeper dive on anything we talk about today, go and hit up Luton on YouTube. He is the best for lore. Just type in Luton and then whatever subject you want, and it's pretty much just a little. It's really easy just to find whatever lore you want.
You may have to put his link down, and you may have to put him down in the description, because
I will do that.
Because it's right now SM2 is just one of those games where it came completely out of left field, and it's the same. Like it was all over TikTok for me. Like when I got into Helldivers, it was all over TikTok, and I was like, wow, this looks really funny. And then same thing with Lethal Company, all over TikTok. So when I started seeing Space Marine all over TikTok, I'm like, okay, this looks really interesting. And I've had friends for a long time who played Warhammer, and every time we've talked about it, they're like, yeah, this I like a Warhammer 401k. Like
401k.
4
Yeah, that's a good one.
401k. I thought, well, because you got to get into your 401k to invest into it. Like you were just telling me earlier to the tank you were building. You're like, how much you say it was before it was on like on a discount?
Yeah, Canadian dollars, by the way, $140 Canadian. But since it was part of a battle group box set that they broke up and sold into pieces, I got it for 85.
But still,
Don't
that's a
tell
lot of
anybody
money.
that. Don't tell my financial people.
Look, we haven't got the business credit card yet, and I don't know why Josh is taking business vacations
Hey,
already.
yeah,
But,
yeah. If we could do episodes where we're just painting minis, we can make that a business expense for sure. As soon as we get
oh yeah,
monetized,
Mastercard hit us up. Um,
let's get
but
our Games Workshop sponsorship.
don't even, dude. We will be rolling in plastic,
We'd be
like
drowning in yeah, plastic crack.
plastic credit card debt.
Yeah,
But
plastic
you know, it's
crack's
just
what we call it.
plastic crack. But still, the 401k, which like, and then that leads like they like, why is it called 40k? Like, I know we've all seen the
Well,
memes where it's like we've all seen the
first of all,
memes
we
where it
haven't
said,
even answered who the Emperor is yet. I just
well,
said he
you,
was a perpetual. So he's a perpetual, but he's a very powerful psyker. He's been around for a long time. He, according to lore, now this isn't you have to take this with a grain of salt. He's been many different influential historical characters throughout forever. So some people joke and meme that he was Jesus. Some people say that he was Hitler. So
oh,
like,
that's terrible.
yeah, because theoretically, 40k is in our timeline, but 40,000 years. So if we're year
Oh,
2000, they're year 40,000. That's where the 40k
okay.
comes from. Now
So Earth
40k.
does
Now remember 40. Now they're thinking of millennia, so 40,000th millennia or millennium. So that's technically 39,000. 41st millennia would be 40,000, etc. Because the 20th or
no,
yeah,
you're right because the
yeah,
the 21st century started in so the 20. I saw this
yeah.
on
21st century is the 2000s.
I
Um,
saw this on Jeopardy at work the other day. The question was from 1970, like it was in 1978 or something. It was like, when did the 20th century start? Everyone said January 1st, 1900, when it was actually January 1st, 1901.
huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, wait, because I guess that would okay. Yeah, okay. Anyway,
Because
so
the
that is
biblical time
so that there's
started
answer.
at the year one.
Yeah, so there's the answer to both your questions there. Emperor Mankind is just a very powerful psyker perpetual who has existed for millennia, and then he ended up creating a bunch of super soldiers called the Thunder Warriors, who were the predecessors to Space Marines, to basically conquer the wastelands of Earth at the time, because this is after an apocalypse against AI, who created robots to fight against man, called and like these robots are called the Men of Steel or something like that, or Men of Iron, the men of some sort of rock.
Mineral, some sort of mineral.
Man of
Men of
mineral,
mineral.
mineral man. I am the mineral man. Uh,
Freaking Agent Schrader's coming around. It's like, they're minerals.
Minerals.
They're minerals.
Um, Shit, I lost track of what I was saying. Emperor.
Well, the emperor that is something I do
Oh
know. Like
yes. Yeah.
the bare minimum I do know about is that
The
the
Thunder
emperor of
Warriors.
mankind, wanted to conquer the galaxy, and he sent like obviously you just said the predecessors of Space Marines, but he sent the Primarchs, right? Right?
Well, we'll get there because there's a little bit that happens before the Primarchs happen.
Okay, because that's
Um,
all I know. So continue because I'm I'd go get a sponge from my kitchen right now, but I really just don't want to. But I'm a proverbial sponge, and I'm ready to absorb
good,
40k
good,
knowledge.
good, youngling. I shall teach you my ways.
Good.
So the Thunder Warriors were basically just an unstable version of Space Marines. They were more prone to psychological problems, dying a lot earlier. Like they had like shortened lifespans, but they were really powerful, really tough, but just not controllable. And they were also mainly taken from gangs and criminals and stuff and warlords of the barren wastelands that were now Earth. So the Emperor creates these super soldiers to kill all the warlords of Earth so that he can take over the entirety of Earth. So that was step one. Was he created his Thunder Warriors to take over all of to take over the entirety of Earth, which is Terra. They call it Terra in 40k. And then once he does this, he's like, okay, well, I need to make better versions of these guys and replace them because they're, they ain't it. They were good for what they were at the time, but they ain't it. And I don't believe I can't remember if the Custodes were created before or after Thunder Warriors. Like I said, if you want more details, you can just search it up or go and see Luton in the description below. But the Custodes.
Well, I did search the Thunder Warriors, and this guy is short.
Yeah,
like he looks like a dwarf.
Yes.
No one.
Oh, you froze there for a second. Give it a second.
Oh.
There you go. You're back. You froze for a second.
See, it's hilarious because my ISP sent me a message today saying, "Hey, you've been upgraded to your service has been upgraded." No, I've been downgraded apparently.
Yeah, first episode of 1 out of 4, and this is the only one you're having problems.
Well, realistically, Josh is the one that holds us together.
Right? If Josh
he had
was
to
here,
bail on us.
If only Josh was here. You hear this, Josh? You better actually watch this episode. You better watch this at work.
Okay.
Listen to it while you're at work, and appreciate the content we made for you. This is for you, Josh. This is so you can catch up on lore.
And if he actually is watching right now, the timestamp. How many fingers am I holding up?
12:19.
Good. Next question.
Timestamp 12:19. Go back. Check it.
You gave him his answer already. You know what? Right now, Josh looks like the Josh right now is this Thunder Warrior. Yeah. I just went there.
It's because the clap of them cheeks when he walks. Nah, just kidding. I can't give you praise like that. You're gone. Anyway, we're getting distracted again.
Cortana, I'm trying to sneak.
Warriors, Adeptus Custodes. So the Adeptus Custodes were made at the same time or around the same time as the Thunder Warriors. And each Adeptus Custodes was handcrafted, so they weren't really unstable at all like the Thunder Warriors, because the Thunder Warriors were made to be created quickly and fast. So the Adeptus Custodes are basically, I believe they're from like birth, as soon as they're infants, they're given and worked on, and the Emperor can like tune them and adjust them however he wants. Which, by the way, is their explanation for female Space Marines, or not female Space Marines, female Custodes, but we're not going to get into that. That's a heated topic in the lore community. You can come to a decision on that in your own, and we'll leave it out of the episode for now.
Controversy.
Yeah. So the Adeptus Custodes were then specifically the leader of the Adeptus Custodes at the time. I believe he was the leader. Valdor was tasked with killing the Thunder Warriors. So they had to go out and murder the rest of the Thunder Warriors and stuff. And then that's when they started the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, right? So Space Marines were just an upgraded version of these Thunder Warriors that were a lot more stable. They would take in young, usually teenaged children, so anywhere between like 12 to 16, stuff like that. Older people weren't often chosen unless like certain circumstances, like some of the Caliban warriors in the Dark Angels were old men, like Luther, I believe his name is Luther. Wow, I'm a Dark Angels fan. Luther was
your bias is showing.
Yeah, Luther was already like a fucking 50 or 60-year-old man or something like that, or however long he lived before he became a Space Marine. And I don't think he's actually a full Space Marine. Actually, I think it didn't take fully to him because of how old he is. So basically, only teenagers and stuff adapt to it, and then there's also a lot of indoctrination that goes into it, so that and I believe also mind wiping. So they try to erase the memories of your previous life, because you lived long enough to remember a lot. So they erase all of that, indoctrinate you, pump you full of new organs that and different organs that stimulate different parts of your brain, or that add more chemicals into your body to promote growth, more growth, so you get bigger and taller and faster. So these were the Space Marines.
I have looked into that though, because if there's one thing I do appreciate from all these sci-fi universes is when they go into detail about surgeries we cannot do, like the Halo surgeries. Oh my God, they have the full-on books like, oh, here's the exact operation we did to give you ceramic ossified bones. Like, that's cool. We 3D scanned your body and gave you unbreakable material to graft to your bones exactly just for you. That's
Honestly,
cool.
like
The Space
tell me
Marines.
tell me if this is familiar, okay? So Space Marines have adamantium plated bones.
That's Wolverine. I think you think of like ceramide or something, because I heard that.
No. Adamantium is a real thing in 40k.
So where are my claws in 40k?
Actually, I'm going to double check myself right now because I don't want to be wrong.
Yes. We're doing the live fact check right now.
I know their bones
right
are
now.
very, because because once we get to Primaris, there's a big difference between Primaris and regular Space Marines Firstborn. The Primaris have extra organs and additional stuff that makes them stronger.
So is it only just the Primaris who have 3 hearts and 3 lungs, or is that all Space Marines?
All Space Marines have 2 hearts and 3 lungs, and then they also have a gland that's mainly kind of died out. They don't really talk about it much. It was more in early lore, but Space Marines can spit acid. Some chapters completely don't have access to that ability at all. Some chapters have an increased access to that ability. So I believe it's for like situations where if you're like bound or you can't do something, you can spit acid to break out of binds, something like that.
So Mortal Kombat's Reptile is a Space Marine?
Sure, if you want to make that your
Sure, man.
your headcanon there.
That's why they're called the Salamanders. Because they're just reptile. I hope Zach hears that.
Okay, yeah. So here's all the gene seed organs. There's a secondary.
He'll come out. He'll call out my blasphemy.
There's the secondary heart, which does obviously just pumps more blood to your bigger body. An osmodula, also called the iron heart, is a second gene seed organ received by a Space Marine neophyte. Is surgically implanted alongside the pituitary gland. So I believe this stimulates human growth. This human growth hormone. So this is what makes them bigger. The Biscopia, also the Forge of Strength, is the third gene seed. It enhances the Marine's physical combat ability and survivability to superhuman levels. It's implanted in the chest. It's primarily a hormonal thing. I'm just seeing if there's any other... No, that's about it. There's also the Hymostamen, also known as the Bloodmaker. I think that's pretty obvious. It just makes more blood, I suppose.
Yeah, so they can. I've read that there's cuts, scars, any open wound will instantly clot and then just scar over.
Yes, that's what he's talking about. Correct. Look, so you've been contributing.
Like I was just saying, like I love it when these universes give me like I'm no doctor, like obviously, like if you couldn't tell, but like I love it when the universes go into detail about why, like even if it's just made up fake surgeries, because gene seeds aren't a real thing, like like I said with Halo, ceramic ossification of the bones, or thyroid implants are a real thing. I'm sure they are.
Okay, no, this next one is the one that clots faster, the Laramans organ.
But like still, it's just like you went into such detail to give us hey, if we could really do this, here's how it would be happening, or like here's how it happens in our universe, and I love that. because it brings an extra layer of just dedication. Like it's the fine print, it's the details that matter. So it's just like I eat this up. Like this whole like Da Vinci, like this picture on the wiki, Anatomy of a Space Marine. It looks like that Da Vinci thing where it's like the guy with his arms spread out and whatnot.
The Vitruvian Man.
Yes, thank you. It's
I know
that,
that
but
has a Warframe. Thanks, Digital Extremes. Sponsor us.
please. I mean, they
Do
did kind
more
of.
Smasher passes for your Warframe.
Well, here's the thing: they kind of shouted us out already because they were doing the dev stream for Zaku Prime, and when they were showing off in the dev stream the Hive liches, a bunch of chat was like, "Hear me out, smash or pass." So like, hey, they must have saw it. They must have saw the episode.
You
Just
actually
saying.
got me excited there for a second. I thought you were going to be like, oh, on one of their community streams, they were like, oh, hey, look, guys, there's a Warframe Smasher Pass. Go check it out, but not on here because we got to keep it PG, even though it's an M-rated game.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
no,
continuing on, the Haima
The Vitruvian
stamen,
Man is awesome.
the Haima stamen is, it lets the blood carry oxygen and nutrients more efficiently.
Yep. Enhances blood composition and efficiency.
Yeah, and the Lehrman's organ is the one that makes the blood clot faster. The catalepsion node, also the unsleeping organ. Okay. This allows the Astarte to consciously switch off sections of the brain sequentially while remaining awake and alert. This ability comes at a price, as prolonged use of this ability can be hazardous, possibly inducing hallucinations or psychosis. So you just like stop any part of your body?
I guess.
This implant bears a resemblance to an ancient scientific theory as to how crustaceans known as bottlenose dolphins sleep. Shut it.
A dolphin's not a crustacean, excuse me?
No, I think it's just called a bottlenose dolphin, but it's I don't know. The preomnor, also called the neutralizer. It is a pre-stomach. Oh, this is what allows Space Marines to eat anything. So it allows them to eat even completely indigestible materials, so that you could like eat rocks. They literally eat crayons.
They could.
They're literally
They
crayon.
could.
Oh, I actually hold on. I think I could be wrong, but can you can you check this for me while we're here?
Let's see what's going on.
The Crayon Eaters chapter. I think that may be like a homebrew chapter that someone made.
No.
No. Okay. Well,
Oh no! I'm reading some titles, and someone went deep into the paint. Oh my god!
You gonna explain or keep us on edge here? Come on.
I'm proofreading to make sure, but apparently, with the armor customization in SM2, where you can just make like. Warframe, Destiny, and Space Marine all have one thing in common.
Great.
Big, beefy armor guys with everything is a mismatched color. Someone made a community chapter, said that they were troubled, or they were founded in the 21st founding. I have no idea what that means. Also known as the Cursed Founding, like their brethren with the ill-fated creation, the Crayon Eaters carry a genetic flaw that sets them apart from the rest of the Adeptus Astartes. However, their curse is unlike anything else known to the Imperium. A strange and almost compulsive obsession with consuming colorful wax-based substances, particularly crayons. This bizarre trait has left many to speculate that the gene seed was tainted in some an inexplicable way, but the High Lords of Terra have yet to uncover the cause.
That's so funny. It's like, sir, why did the Crayon Eaters swap out all of their nutrient paste rations for boxes of crayons? Really, man? It's in the fucking name. I thought that was just a joke. No, man. Have you never heard?
Apparently,
Space Marine can eat rocks. I think crayons would be just as nutritious.
Their chapter master, Loricus Rainbow Jaw Scribble.
Okay. Send me the
Rainbow.
link for that. I want to post that in
I
the
I will
description.
I will be very glad to do that because
I'll post that for everybody to go to check out in the description.
I I love the creativity of like I am so proud of this community.
All right. So
Oh my
next up,
goodness.
the Homophagia, also called the Remembrancer organ. Oh yeah, this is what allows Space Marines to gain the memories and knowledge of people that they eat, which
Huh?
the Blood Angels use to great effect.
Well, is that because the Blood Angels are vampires? Question mark. I've heard that quite a
The Blood
bit.
Angels have a defect called the Red Thirst, which is their original defect before they got the Black Rage as well. And it basically gives, like, randomly will give you, not randomly, just like it's a random chance for you to have it. It makes you crave like eating flesh and drinking blood. So like I believe the Flesh Terrors, which are a successor chapter, I believe all if not, or most if not all of the Flesh Terrors Space Marines have the Red Thirst.
Interesting. I like how that was Henry Cavill's one of his mains at one point before the Adeptus Custodes.
Yeah, basically, the Blood Angels went through a period of being the poster boys before the Ultramarines were.
Wait, so the Ultras weren't the poster boys all the time?
No, the Ultramarines were actually kind of. They were just there. They didn't become the poster boys until later on, until like
No, was
around
that during?
Primaris
Was
era,
that
I believe, or not?
was
Not
that?
pre-Primaris era, like when they started having the new plastic model kits come out. I believe, sixth edition, maybe sixth or fifth
What
edition,
what year was that?
early 2000s.
Early. Okay, so I was trying to think if this was this was happening when Space Marines 1 came out. But I know
No,
there
it was
was
before that. So like
okay.
by the time Space Marine 1 came out, the Ultramarines were the poster boys.
Okay, because that was
11,
2011 or 13. Oh yeah,
2011.
11.
Yeah, because it's there was a, I believe, I can't remember what edition there was, but there was like a Battle for Macragge edition, or where they like it's when like the Tyranids were introduced, and the Tyranids and Ultramarines were the starter armies. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, because this is not lore related, so I don't care to double check myself on this. Well, that's sort of lore related, but not that much. Anyway, that's the first edition that had the Ultramarines as like one of the box cover or box art Marines, because before then it was Dark Angels and Blood Angels.
Okay, now I want to know. I want to know who the first chapter released was. Do you know?
First chapter released. Well, all the original 9 Loyalist chapters were released with the second edition. I don't know about first edition. There might have been some additional ones or different ones. In
Oh well,
edition.
I'm kind of getting
But second edition.
I'm thinking wrong because I forget that all these things come in a plastic kit that then you paint yourself. So your plastic kit could be whatever you want it to be. So I was like,
Exactly.
oh, well, I'm like, oh, they did a Dark Angels or a Blood Angels. No, I'm getting ahead of myself.
You're kind of getting in the same place though, because there are special characters. So I believe the ones that you could just paint to be whatever you want, and that are just generic, are the plastic ones. Because even back then they had plastic, but they were just mainly meant for the monopose basic troops, whereas the characters got resin and pewter / white metal models.
Well, I'm trying to find a picture of a retro 40k model.
While you're doing that, I'll continue reading off the organs.
Yes, please do.
So the Remembrancer, yeah, that you learn by eating. Multi-lung is just your third lung. That's it.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. Oculobe is also called the Eye of Vengeance. It's implanted in the eye. Basically, it allows Space Marines to see in the dark. So, they can see in low light conditions and near darkness almost as well as in bright daylight. Lyman's ear, also called the Sentinels, or the Sentinel, is the 11th gene seed organ. It improves inner ear structure, so it makes them immune to dizziness or motion sickness. But also allows
God,
them
I need that.
It also allows them to consciously filter out and greatly enhance certain sounds, so increases their hearing.
Could use that.
Okay, this is a weird one. The sus and membrane. It's spelt Susan, but with a dash, like a hyphen between sus and an. So the Susan membrane, also called the hibernator, implanted in the brain. It is ineffective without follow-up chemical therapy. But with sufficient practice and instruction, a Space Marine can use this implant to enter a state of suspended animation consciously or as an automatic reaction to extreme trauma, keeping the Space Marine alive for Terran years, even if he has suffered otherwise mortal wounds. So, okay, it's the hibernator. It just allows you to hibernate and prolong your lifespan so you don't die. Which is kind of weird because I feel like a lot more Space Marines would take advantage of this. Otherwise, like,
Where if they get if they like
or
get
wait,
lost on a
hold on,
distant
hold on,
planet,
hold on. I think it just explained it to myself. Dreadnoughts.
could it be for the
Yeah. You were on the right page here. I was just gonna say that's probably how dreadnoughts are created because like they're so messed up, but that keeps them alive to the point where they can be put into dreadnoughts before they die. So there you go.
well, like I can just imagine if you sustain some sort of like super heavy shock and like you have to your body puts itself in a coma to survive, and then they can't bring you out of that coma, so then you're put into a dreadnought, and then they bring you out of that coma chemically, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're a dreadnought.
The next one is the melanochrome, also called the skin shield. Basically, this just allows Space Marines to be immune to the sun and radiation.
So does that mean they can get a really good tan or none at all?
Oh no, they get an amazing tan. Like their skin automatically tans to adjust to sunlight.
They have iPhone auto brightness to the sun.
Yeah, it controls the amount of melanin in the Space Marine skin. Exposure to high levels of sunlight will result in the Astartes skin naturally darkening. To compensate, it also protects the Space Marine from other forms of electromagnetic radiation. Different levels of radiation cause variations of skin color in different chapters due to mutations in the melochrome organs gene seed. Blood angels and salamanders both have this.
Dang.
So blood
Now,
angels have pale skin, along with Corvus Corax's Legion, the Raven Guard, which is, I believe, a result of that, and then along with salamanders and their black skin.
Ooh, I finally found an image of one of the first Space Marines released from 40k, and this guy looks vastly different to what we see today. That's rather interesting.
Yeah, they look kind of derpy. They were in what they call hero scale back then, but now they're in a different scale.
But it also looked like he had the beak helmet that the Raven Guard use. But I also know other
back then
chapters
and even now, yeah, like old chapters use it. Like back in Horus Heresy, it was mainly like a veteran or sergeant helmet. Because it was one of the newest forms of power armor at the time, or most advanced forms of power armor at the time.
So it's kind of like a callback. Basically, it's like, oh, the beak helmet is a callback to the very earliest.
Yeah, and then there's just some.
I like that.
The Raven Guard specifically, especially nowadays, pretty much would use entirely like all of them would be beakies, and that's actually they were to such a large prevalence just among Space Marines in general. That's why orcs have a nickname of beakies for Space Marines, because so many Space Marines use beak helmets that it's just synonymous with Space Marines. Because remember, the Mark 7 and Mark 8 power armor, which is the ones that people often think of when they think of a firstborn Space Marine, weren't really common until after the Horus Heresy. So before then, the newest most common armor was Mark 6, and even then you only really saw it in late stage Horus Heresy. Before then it was, up to Mark 5. I actually even think Mark 5 was a little bit later as well. Because Mark 5 is pretty much almost the same as Mark 6, but with a different helmet and a different shoulder pad. Next up is the Oolitic Kidney. Basically makes it so Space Marines can't get drunk. It filters out toxins so they can't be poisoned. They can't be poisoned by gases and stuff. It just makes them immune to chemical warfare in general, pretty much.
That's...
Next up is the Neuroglottis, the Devourer. It is an alters what? And after it is functioning, chewing, tasting, or smelling a substance allows the Space Marine to biochemically test it for toxicity. Oh, so you can taste if something is toxic. You can tell something's toxic by just tasting or smelling it. The Mucranoid.
I like how ridiculous these sound, but there's magic and guns in this universe, so it's like it's not that ridiculous.
Yeah, and like this is all created from genetic manipulation. So, and like this is again, at least at this point when they were being created, it was 30,000 or 28,000 years in the future from our timeline. Next up is the Mucranoid. Is the Weaver organ is implanted in the central nervous system. It responds to specific chemical stimuli in the environment, causing the Space Marine to secrete a waxy protein substance similar to mucus through his pores that seals his skin. Interesting.
I don't like that description.
This process can even protect them from the vast harshness of the vacuum of space.
So you're telling me a couple of these Space Marines they'll be out in the ship playing some football, be like, man, I've worked up a wax.
It's pretty much what it just seems like is their sweat is just like a protective layer of oil on their skin. Belcher's gland lets them spit poison. That one's easy.
That's cool.
The progenoid gland is, or known simply as gene seed, is specifically what gives the Space Marines their unique traits.
Their characteristics.
So basically the progenoid glands are created from the Primarchs, and that's what gives each Space Marine chapter its specialities and differences in temperament and looks and whatever. And then the last one, the coolest one in my opinion, or one of the coolest ones, the one that just makes the most sense and is very similar to Spartans in my personal opinion, is the Black Carapace, which is just a subdermal layer that goes underneath the skin and that has like nodes on the outside, as you can see in the game Space Marine 2 when Titus has his shirt off and shit, or his armor off. You can see like these giant just nodes, like circle.
Is that where the armor connects to?
Yes, that's where the armor connects to his skin.
Okay.
And then it basically allows the Space Marine to connect to their armor and let their armor move as if they weren't. It lets the Space Marines move in armor as if they weren't wearing armor at all.
I mean, there was a trailer that was released it was just a Ultramarine getting suited up. I don't know if it was for Space Marine 2, but it was a trailer showing a ritual of armoring up the Marine, and they put on this undersuit that when it zips all the way up, it like molds to their skin, so it becomes like a undersuit of the second skin, and then all these like things are getting plugged into them. But then when they finally plug in that like the exhaust thing on the back for the machine spirit, you see his pupils dilate. So it's just like, it's cool that there's no like neural link like there is in Halo for the Spartan armor, but this armor seems like it connects to them on literally a more physical level, because they have the pieces put into them so the armor connects to their body itself, and that's
and it's
really
not just
cool.
that, but they also do have like their armor itself pairs with their enhances their organs already, like whatever organs help them like see and stuff. So
And it
like
has like a whole litany of sensors and whatnot. It's just super cool.
yeah, because like the helmet can help you target things, which is we'll answer one of your questions. Why do bolters not have stocks? One, Space Marines are strong enough a recoil doesn't matter. Two, they have such good aim from their sensors in their helmet that they don't even need to actually aim. They're basically their helmet tells them where to hold their weapon and when to fire. So it's like
And look, I did kind of look into this because I'm a big gun nut, so like I just kind of nerd out about this stuff because I'm like, where'd a bolt go? Because it's like whatever. But apparently, some of the bullets that the bolter fires is like a rocket propelled bullet,
yeah,
and it could
there's no casing and there's no bolt required because it just ignites.
It's
every weapon it's a rocket. Yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's a rocket propelled grenade, but as a bullet.
But that's freaking awesome, dude. It's a bullet, but the bullet automatically adjusts its trajectory, even for the slightest thing.
Yeah,
So
hones in on targets.
your bullets are accurate. You're accurate, and it's just a big freaking gun. Like you got me sold. Like I don't need a stock or nothing. Like I'll accept the fact that all of it may be a blowback weapon. That's fine.
And
But man,
sticking to the helmet thing as well, some Space Marines don't wear helmets, not just because they don't need the aiming assistance, but because it's seen as honorable to fight with your helmet off for the Emperor because it shows your bravery and courage. Because
I hate that.
Well, because
I don't like that.
I believe this is the reason why. It's because the Emperor never wore a helmet, so to not wear your helmet is to be as the Emperor was. You know.
So it's a precedent, but it's a
you're
silly precedent.
It's like when people try to be old Jesus-y and act like Jesus, and they wear the the crown of thorns, or the thorn crown. You know.
Yeah.
As like
I personally have never seen that. I want to know what you're. I want to know what you're saying. Hey, bless you.
Oh yeah, sorry. Was that me? Blasphemy. I mean, what?
Heresy. But like, I think it's so goofy that that was actually a question I didn't even know I had. Like, I understand it's for cinematic. Like in a comic, you got to see who your character is. Like I get it. People without helmets all the time, and also your miniatures. You can paint a guy's face on there, or if it's a really specific guy, or if you just have nameless Marines.
I'm always putting a helmet on my guys. Personally.
Well, that just makes sense because a bullet can like a Tyranid could shoot something just out of nowhere, and then boom, you're dead. A heretic come out of nowhere, boom, you're dead.
Another thing about bolters is the bolters used by Space Marines are also coded to the Astartes genetic signature so that they're only functional by Space Marines. So someone else can pick up a bolt like your bolter and use it against you.
That is cool. But that kind of defeats the purpose of picking up weapons in SM2, doesn't it? You're just like all these weapons on the ground are coded to me. That's weird.
That is one of the complaints from lore people is they're just like, why is there so many weapons and shit around? Like, this is not normal.
But it's a sandbox. Let me have fun with the hammer.
Well, it's just because every single weapon in 40k is handcrafted and then treated like a holy relic by either the chapter's artificers or the
tech priests.
Yeah, the tech priests of the AdMech.
See, I could get behind the Adeptus Mechanicus. Worshipping guns, I could get behind that. To a degree, of course. Within reason.
So, let's move on to your next question you had for us here, which is, what is chaos?
Yes, because I've mentioned the heretics quite a bit. And why are they heretics? Why did they turn? Why am I supposed to hate them? Why are they kind of cool?
Yeah, so we can go into a bigger deep dive on Horse Heresy and stuff like that, but I'll just give you like a short rundown of traitors and chaos and stuff. So, there's always been the Chaos Gods. Well, not always, because they do have a order of birth. So, like, there is an oldest Chaos God and a newest Chaos God. So the oldest,
but they exist within the warp, and the warp has been there for
so the oldest,
a long time.
The oldest Chaos God is Nurgle. He was the first one. That's why he's called Grandfather Nurgle. Now he was created first. Basically, they are created from worship and belief.
Okay, now when you say Nurgle, I almost said Nurgle, Garfield's cousin. When you say Nurgle, what heretic Astartes is that?
The Death Guard, the Plague Marines.
Okay, so if I play SM2, that's the one that does bulwark, and he's the one who's like
Yes.
decay and pus.
Yes. Yes.
Ew, gross.
So Nurgle is all about, pestilence, disease, rot, and rebirth, and even life.
So the flood.
To an extent. Um, or, um, so yeah, and basically a cool thing about the Death Guard and stuff is they almost. I believe this is more of a meme type thing, but it's pretty similar. They kind of see the world in the same way Pyro does from Team Fortress 2. So, like, while everybody else sees them as disgusting, horrendous monsters spreading disease and chaos, to them, they see it as a gift, and they're actually pretty happy about it. So, like, most followers of Nurgle are, like, like, in their own mind, while they're, like, chopping you up to pieces and giving you infections, to them, they're just, like, doing a good thing. To them, that's a nice thing, and that should be something that should be rewarded. And so they're spreading their gifts of plague and disease, and they think it's a good thing. So the meme is that they all see, instead of shooting out toxic sludge at people that instantly melts them into skeletons,
It's just rainbows and butterflies.
Yeah, in their eyes, it's rainbows and butterflies and shit, and there's nothing wrong. And they're just like, what? Why are you guys running? We just want to give you candy and love.
Yo, I'm looking at Death Guard.
Which is also why you see a lot of them smiling. A lot of Nurgle worshippers, their models will have giant smiles. So like the Great Unclean Ones have big smiles. A lot of the Poxwalkers are smiling. Some of the Chaos Space Marines that you see will have big smiles as well.
I'm seeing one. I'm looking at a squad of Blight Lord Terminators. They are fat, dude. These are like they've got bellies.
Yeah,
and this guy's smiling.
They're the slowest legion, and that's their whole thing. Is they have slow, like they move slowly, but they have giant, formations with vehicles and stuff. They're like siege. They're almost kind of like siege special troops. Not in the same way of the Iron Warriors, where they're like good at like breaking down fortifications, but they're just good at like big army fighting. Basically, the more men, the better. They have a bunch of vehicles to back them up. Next is, I believe the next one that was born was Khorne. And that's just, he embodies honor. Because there's also, by the way, there's also good aspects to all of the gods. So it's theorized that at first, the gods weren't evil. Like, before there was a bunch of mass war and galaxy-wide conflicts and stuff, they were the nice, normal versions of themselves. So Grandfather Nurgle, while he was the god of rot and pestilence still, he was also the god of rebirth and life. And that's what he would be presented as. Khorne is the same way. Honor, fighting, courage, bloodshed. That's just more, and then as there's more bloodshed and war and stuff, he also becomes more demonic and cursed and whatever. After that, it's Tzeentch. And Tzeentch is third, because basically he is a manipulator. He's a master at manipulating people. He's very secretive. He lies a lot. He especially likes to mess with his own followers, like his own chaos. Like basically the worst god to worship, arguably, is Tzeentch, because he will fuck with you just because he wants to. He's known as the Lord of Change, or the Chaos God of Change. So he likes to enact change constantly. He's also one of the, like, his legions are very well known for mutations, for like mutating their followers into gross monsters, Chaos Spawn.
Oh, is that the god for the Thousand Suns?
Yes, that is the Thousand Suns god
from
Space Marine 2. Yeah. Next up is Slaanesh. Now, Slaanesh was the most recent one, and that's because they were born after the Eldari, the Space Elves. They were the biggest, basically after winning the War in Heaven, which we will get to at a different time, which is basically the giant galaxy-wide war that happened before humanity was even, colonizing other planets and stuff. The survivors of that war were the orcs and the Eldar, as the Necrons went to sleep, and the other ones died off or were imprisoned by the other races. So the Eldar were on top. They were like, they had the biggest society. They controlled the most planets and stuff, because the orcs just cared about fighting and whatever, and the Necrons were asleep, and humanity hasn't. The Tau weren't around, Tyranids weren't around. Humanity was still shitting their diapers on Terra, or weren't even existing at that point. We didn't evolve or even exist at that point. It's not really specific. So here's the thing about Eldar. They feel emotion more. Like, all emotions are heightened for them. So whereas we would get angry, they get really angry. Whereas we feel love, they feel a lot of love. Where they're happy, they're extremely freaking happy. Like, all of their emotions are amplified. So they can be very interesting. So
emphatic, it sounds like you're trying to say.
Yeah, so basically after they got good at everything, they started to indulge in more pleasurable things, things that were more suited to leisure and luxury and art and music. And when that wasn't enough for them, and they got bored of that, because they also have very long lifespans, they pretty much are immortal and won't die ever, they also started getting into really, really weird stuff, like kinky shit, bondage and cutting and having sex with dead bodies and making art out of dead people with blood and organs and slavery and sex slavery and a whole lot of bad. And basically, some of the people saw this and were like, ooh, yikes, big yikes, this is bad. So they made things called craft worlds, which were giant, like huge, like you can't even imagine the scale of how big these are. These are literally like, not planet-sized, but a ship big enough to hold the population of a planet. They are meant to be, they're generation ships is what I believe the term is, just in like sci-fi in general. They're ships that are meant to hold people for generations. They're meant to be lived on forever. So a lot of these craft worlds were created and started and departed and left their home system to be like, yeah, we're gonna get away from these guys because they're getting too weird and kinky for us, so let's go and do our own thing elsewhere. So after they left, the craft worlds left and stuff, they just got worse and worse and worse, and eventually their whole planet and the entire system around it exploded into a giant warp storm rift that swallowed a bunch of the planets and like destroyed and instantly killed all of the Eldar in the vicinity, and created Slaanesh, the god of hedonism and perfection and art and all of your self indulging activities. Excess. She/he is the god of excess. Now, no Chaos gods technically have a gender, even though they go by gender pronouns. Like the other three are he, her.
Well,
Nurgle,
a divine
Nurgle's a
being
dude.
does.
Nurgle like describes himself as a man, like refers to himself as a man. Khorne refers to himself as a man. Tzeentch, people refer to Tzeentch as a man. I don't know if Tzeentch refers to himself as a man.
Well,
But
divine beings, but like I think of like Elder Scrolls, like
they
I
don't
think of like
technically
the age.
have a gender.
I think of the Aedra and the Daedra. They don't have genders. They just have manifestations. They just have form, like aspects. That's the word I'm thinking of. Aspects. They choose what they appear as.
Yeah. So basically, Slaanesh's whole thing is they basically will appear as what you want them to be. So if you are into women, you'll see Slaanesh as a woman. If you are into men, you'll see Slaanesh as a man. But it's always like a twisted version. Like they're often depicted with like crab claws, snake tails, like snake features, crab features, crustacean features, stuff like that. Yeah. And then basically the remnants of the hedonistic ones, like the ones that created Slaanesh, the ones that were left over, who weren't on the craft worlds and stuff. They hid away in the webway, which is the Eldar's inherited form of teleportation. Pretty much, it's another dimension almost in the warp that's not really connected to the warp, so you can safely travel through it as opposed to using the warp, which is normal. Which comes with chaos incursions if you're not protected by an astropath navigator and whatever.
So what is the warp?
Wait, hold on, let me finish.
Oh, very good.
So these Eldar who were still into BDSM and kinky stuff and death and torture and all that, have a world in the webway, and these are the Dark Eldar, the Drukhari, and basically in order to avoid their eventual fate, which is when any Eldar dies, their soul immediately goes to Slaanesh to be tortured forever.
Ooh.
So all of those Eldar that immediately died from all those like thousands of planets or whatever that got ate up by the warp storm, or the warp rift that was created, which is now also, by the way, called the Eye of Terror. So when you hear the Eye of Terror, that is where the Eldar's homes planets were at one point.
That's where the accident happened.
Yeah. And that's where all the demons come from and stuff. At this point in the lore, it is actually stretched so far that it cut the galaxy in half. So now there's the Imperial Nihilus, which is the half that's cut off from Terra, and then there's the other half, which is where Terra is. The Drukhari are just the Dark Eldar. They live in the webway. They come out. They will steal and kidnap people and take them back to their planet to torture them and stuff, because they have to in order to prevent themselves from being from dying. So basically, the more they enact the torture and essay and stuff like that,
and the not fun stuff to say on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. The more they do that, the more they regenerate and they become younger and they can sustain their life longer, so they don't have to die. Because as soon as they die, they go to Slaanesh. Now the regular the regular Eldar avoid this by having stuff called soul stones, which they carry on themselves. So when they die, they're instead of going to Slaanesh, the Eldar's souls get trapped in the soul stones, and then those soul stones are used to power giant mech robots. Yeah, Gundams pretty much. Elf Gundams.
I love how this universe has there's two certainties: life and becoming some sort of a dreadnought.
Death and war. I know. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. Is they are pretty much the dreadnoughts of the Eldar.
I really like the dreadnoughts. I think it's just
we will get to dreadnoughts when we get to the bottom of the list here, because it's part of the types of Marines. So that's chaos. That's chaos for you. So that's what chaos is now. Basically, chaos. They're when they aren't fucking with humanity, they are doing what is called the Great Game, which is where each chaos god is constantly trying to be the best and to be the biggest. Is to be the most dominant in the galaxy and try to fuck over and destroy the other chaos gods, right? And only sometimes do they band together in order to mess with humanity so that they can continue their great game, without being interrupted or without threat. So basically, that's their whole thing. That is what chaos is. That's what they want. Is they just want to win the great game. So each chaos god, their only goal is to just be the final chaos god left, so they could rule everything.
So they are playing a very literal version of the game.
Yeah.
And whoever just heard that, you lost the game. You lost the game.
You lost. You're donezo. So next up, your next question here was, what is the origin of the Tyranids?
Just because I've been killing a lot of those on Space Marine, I kind of want to understand the little creatures that I keep just going, just catch them in there, then go, bim!
Well, this one's easy.
Very good.
We don't know. Next question. Next question is, what is the origin of the Tyranids in our galaxy, like within the Warhammer universe.
I thought it was just like a dunzo, like,
Because
oh,
we don't
here's a
technically, we don't technically know where they came from. We just know that they came from a different galaxy or from outside of our galaxy.
Okay, I thought you were about to hand me like a glass of water and then just dump it out, being like, hey, here's the Tyranid information. Nope. So it's just like, oh yeah,
No,
it's
I
literally
couldn't
just
do that to you. I still have an origin story though, because they were first contacted. Actually, hold on. I don't really want to say something. The first Hive fleet to be contacted was Hive Fleet Behemoth. They are the Tyranids that have the red skin with the dark purple or just black carapace. Now, these are the ones that I believe were introduced in the edition that had the Ultramarines as the first box art Marines. These are the ones that they fought. These are the ones that became known. Basically, when they fought High Fleet Behemoth, it was known as the First Tyrannic War. They were found on a place on a planet called Tyran. Now, Tyran was like this water world. It was pretty much like 100% water with just like small island fortification, monastery type fortifications. And the first people to encounter them were just like the planetary guard that were defending that planet. And the Tyranids came in, landed on the planet, and fucked everyone over. I believe the Ultramarines were there as well. Yeah, it was at a small research station on Tyran Primus. The Tyranids overran this isolated outpost of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Sorry, it was an Adeptus Mechanicus outpost with overwhelming force. Inquisitor Cryptman. All my homies hate Inquisitor Cryptman. He is the guy that pretty much thought that the best way to prevent the Tyranids from spreading and getting bigger and stuff was to just kill all the planets in their path. So any planet that they would have come across, they just exterminated it, just so that they couldn't get the biomass from that planet. But then eventually they just ended up at the Macragge system. The Macragge system, which is where the Ultramarines have their home base. They went through a big battle with the Ultramarines. The Ultramarines were the first to really fight them. They became the Tyrannic veterans. So basically, any of the Space Marines or the Ultramarines that were left over from the First Tyrannic War became the First Company Tyrannic veterans. So they were specifically sent out on missions to aid other chapters in fighting Tyranids.
because they had the most experience at that time.
Yeah. And then at this point, pretty much just Ultramarines in general became really good Tyranid fighters because they had the most experience with them. The Tyranids are known for taking all the biomass of a planet, even including the water of the planet, and trees and vegetation and animals and humans, and basically using it to create more Tyranids. Because Tyranids can be created from any biomass. Because basically what they do is the Tyranids basically have I don't know if it's an actual machine or something, but just if you think of the giant, their giant ships are organisms, like they are living beings, and I believe they are the ones that create the Tyranids. So you can think of these.
So the things from the sky that put those hoses, like in the most recent operation that put the hoses into the ground, those are living beings.
Yes, those are living beings. Those are not actual ships. Those are giant Tyranids that spit out smaller Tyranids. So basically, they basically act as like the hive mind that's in control of all the Tyranids. Now, unlike what is shown in Space Marine 2, killing the hive fleet ship will not kill all the Tyranids in the vicinity. It just makes them dumber and makes them go crazy and rampage instead of being coordinated. So if anything, it makes them more dangerous. It is not.
I love the correlation between Tyranid and Flood that I'm making. The Tyranids without their hive, they go feral. The Flood without a grave mind, they go feral.
Yeah, not just that,
They take
but I believe it's
they
also,
take biomass and make anything.
Swarm Lords also kind of acted in the same thing. So all of the bigger Tyranid units act as the central intelligence at the time, and basically they're able to control all of the Tyranids in the vicinity, because they all have a hive mind, right? So basically all Tyranids are controlled by basically one entity, and when that entity is not around, they just go to default programming, which is kill and eat anything in sight.
Kill John Lennon.
Kill John Lennon.
It's-
So next up,
that's pretty freaking cool though. Tyranids are. I have a little bit more respect for them now.
oh yeah, and by the
Still
way,
gonna kill
oh yeah,
'em.
like I was saying, so these ships, they basically have schematics and blueprints for a bunch of different Tyranid forms that they can create, and they just can create them at will and send them out for different missions depending on what is required, because they're that smart. They can know what is required for a certain mission. So like specific types of Tyranids are only sent out for specific events. Like for example, lictors, you'll only ever see a lictor in like one lictor. They don't go in pairs and stuff. It's just one lone lictor, stuff like that. So like they're smart. They know what they're doing. And some of those like lictors and stuff have their own intelligence, are able to operate on their own more. So it's more like Hormagaunts and stuff and Termagaunts that need a central figure to increase their intelligence and their cooperation. So yeah, they're basically just giant flesh 3D printers that can create whatever they want, and they learn from fighting. So let's say you virus bomb a bunch of Tyranids, they will by the next generation of Tyranids. So after you kill all the Tyranids that currently exist, all the new ones that are created after that will be immune to that virus.
They'll be.
So, if you notice in the beginning of Space Marine 2, when you are playing as the Death Watch version of Titus before he becomes a Primaris, in the intro mission,
Yeah.
your whole objective with your squad is to plant a virus
Is to
bomb.
deliver the bomb.
Yeah, and then later on, after you destroy or you kill your first Carnifex, I believe, while you go back to your change your loadout or whatever, there is a dead Carnifex and a bunch of AdMech around it talking about the Carnifex, and then they mention in the game how they already, like that Carnifex that they were studying at the time in the armory room, had already like evolved to be immune to that virus bomb that was set off in the first mission. So yeah, within the game, they even like give you an explanation, like, oh look, the Tyranids can adapt to anything, and will adapt to your tactics and different.
The Tyranids. You said
yeah,
the Tyranids from.
Oh, did I say Tyranids?
Yeah.
Oh, Tyranids. Sorry.
See, I love how Helldivers and.
That's why they're called Tyranids, is because they were found on Tyran Prime.
Okay.
And it's
like that.
and it's tyrannic, not tyrannic war, tyrannic war, because it's Tyranids, tyrannic, Tyran. Some people just will pronounce it Tyran. Technically not correct, but you do you. You do you.
We don't judge around here. We don't judge on the God Roll podcast.
All right. So next up, I believe, was you wanted to know who the Primarchs were, what their whole deal was.
Who are these Primarchs? Because I hear there's 12 of them, but then half of them defected and became heretics or something, and now some of them are missing. Like, as an example,
18.
Here's an example.
Actually,
of that.
21, but
My God.
as of the Horus Heresy, there was 18 Primarchs.
Here's why I need to ask. Someone wearing a band t-shirt walks past me. I say, hey, name 3 songs from that band. And they go, I can't. I just like the shirt. I'm just like, poser. I legitimately got into a discussion on Reddit. Big surprise. I said, oh, I like Space Marine 2. Someone said, huh, you must be new. Name 3 Primarchs. I was like, uh-oh.
That's okay.
Uh-oh.
Primarchs is fine. It's fine to not really know a lot about Primarchs. They can be a little confusing at first. So each Primarch has their own book. Each of the 18 Primarchs that will be, official Primarchs have their own book for the Horus Heresy.
Are there already 18 of the books, or are we still waiting for some to come out?
No, they're all out. They're all out. So you can get a book for each Primarch that tells you about their origin, like where they were found and brought up. Which I'll explain why they were found and brought up, and not just raised by the Emperor straight up. Because when they were created, which was after he started, either during or at the same, after the Custodes, and after he started creating the Space Marines, he created the Primarchs. But in order for the Space Marines to function properly, what he needed to do is create these Primarchs and then use the Primarchs' DNA to finish the Space Marines. So that's why there's a bunch of different legions specifically tied to the Primarchs, because each Primarch DNA was used to stabilize the process in creating the Space Marines. So basically, a Thunder Warrior, the only thing that would have stopped a Thunder Warrior from being stable and not being messed up would be the gene seed from a Primarch. And then obviously Space Marines have extra organs and all that other stuff we just talked about, which made them better. But that was the main difference, is the fact that they had the gene seed to stabilize them so they could live for hundreds of years and stuff. So yeah, to answer your question, they can live for hundreds of years, if not thousands or 10,000 years. Some Space Marines have been around since the Horus Heresy, so for 10,000 years.
There are 10,000-year-old Marines.
One of them's a Dreadnought. Bjorn of the Space Wolves was like fought with Leman Russ in the Horus Heresy.
Is that the one that Zach told us about that was fighting the Tau, and the Tau beat it, and then they inspected it, and they were like, "Oh my God, this Dreadnought is older than our whole civilization."
No, because some Dreadnoughts, a lot of Dreadnoughts are from the Horus Heresy. And the ones that are that long are specifically used only in times of war. And the older you are, pretty much you just get... It's funny. So when Dreadnoughts are not being used, they get put into hibernation and they go to sleep so they don't go crazy. Because they cannot really sleep otherwise. So they have to be put to sleep,
And they are in constant pain.
Yes. Or discomfort. Like, it's not... Because it's not really pain. What it is that your body is trying to breathe. It is trying to feel. It is trying to do all the things that it normally does. It wants to eat. It wants to breathe, but it's not allowed to. So it constantly feels like you cannot breathe, even though you don't need to. So imagine if you constantly were in a state of needing to take a breath, but you couldn't.
Ooh. I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that.
And then you can't feel anything. Like you can't feel the environment. There is a bit of lore where a Dreadnought does say that everything he feels is more intense. But it's not specific on whether that's like touch or if it's emotions that he feels more intensely. Oh, it could just be different. I mean, it's also been written by a lot of different authors, so there has been conflicting information. So that's why Warhammer has this whole everything is canon aspect, so that they can, kind of excuse when writers do bad writing and do contradictions, because they basically want to set it up that every story you hear is being told by unreliable narrators. So even the wow, stutter. Even the
that was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was a terrible stutter. Even the definitive stuff that we know cannot be taken for... it has to be taken with a grain of salt.
So even if John Warhammer himself wrote a book, we couldn't take it with 100% certainty.
No, because that's just how they have set up the world. Now, obviously, some things are definitely a lot more canon than others because it's been multiple different reinforcements. So, like, multiple books have reinforced the same idea, or lore has been reinforced over the years. So, like, stuff like the chapters are definitive. Primarchs are definitive. The Emperor is definitive. So there's certain things that will not be changed and can't be changed. But, like, when it comes to stuff like, oh, there's this rumor that there's this chapter of Space Marines who, got lost in the void and, are still fighting for the Emperor, but in the warp, but nobody knows who they are. That could be true, or it couldn't be true. A lot of it is also put there so people can just homebrew stuff and can come up with their own chapters and whatever.
Like the Crayon Eaters.
Yeah. Now, getting back to Primarchs.
Yes.
Primarchs were created specifically to be generals for these legions, and each one was created for a different purpose. Each Primarch is actually a different part of the Emperor's personality. So, like, Horus has the Emperor's ambition. Rubute Gilliman, the Ultramarine Primarch, has the Emperor's like logical thinking and like level-headedness. Angron has his wrath and his anger. Perturabo has his stubbornness and like determination to succeed. Perturabo is the Iron Warrior's Primarch. Fulgrim has his pride and perfectionist side of him. Fulgrim is the Primarch of the Emperor's Children, which are also the Slanesh worshipping traitor Marines. And then, so I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, that's not all That's not all 18, but with
I'm going to go in order here, like and actually go through them. But I was just trying to give an idea. So from first to last, the first Primarch created was Lionel Johnson. So he gets the first Legion. He is the Dark Angels Primarch. He was born on Caliban, or not born, but like when he was. Oh yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so what you really need to know is the Primarchs were created, and then they technically have a mother who is also a perpetual. I forget her name, but basically it is rumored or speculated that the Chaos Gods and their mother worked together to spread the Primarchs out across the galaxy in an effort to ruin the Emperor's plans. So Emperor was like, God damn it, now I gotta go find my sons. So he gets all of his Space Marines that he created before the Primarchs were sent out, and he creates them into these legions, the 18 legions, technically 20 legions. So at first there's 20 Primarchs. There's 2 of them we don't talk about because they've been completely erased from Imperial records, and nobody's allowed to talk about them. We don't know why.
Is that like a game rule, or is that just like a lore thing?
It's a lore thing. The reason why they did it at first is so that people could create their own legions and like homebrew their own legions. So it's like, oh, well, we don't know who the second legion is, or the 11th. So the second and the 11th Primarch are the ones that are gone, who are lost.
So Games Workshop leaves a little bit of room for interpretation, so that if you don't really vibe with the 20 or so different chapters, and then maybe there are sub chapters, you can just kind of make your own, and no one can get mad at you.
Yeah, but in more recent years, what they do is they've been kind of like reinforcing the idea that they actually have identities, but they're just being hidden, because there's been many mentions of those lost Primarchs and the legions by different characters throughout the Horus Heresy books. And basically anytime they're mentioned, they just go, what a shame about the legions. If only they were still here with us. Like at one part, like in Macragge, or on Macragge, Rubute Gilliman has a council chamber with 20 seats arranged, or 21 seats, one for the Emperor, and then 20 for each Primarch. But now each seat is adorned with like the heraldry of the legions, of each of their legions, except for 2 of them, which are just regular gray banners with no heraldry on them. And when Rubute Gilman's asked about it, like, hey, why do you have, 2 empty spots here? And it's like, well, it's for our brothers that we lost and can't talk about anymore. Like, even though we're not allowed to talk about them, it still shouldn't mean we shouldn't respect them and have a place for them here. So the biggest, my personal theory, and what everybody seems to agree on, like majority wise, is that One of the legions is a traitor legion, like went chaos, or not even necessarily chaos, but just rejected the emperor and didn't want to be a part of
Just
the Imperium.
heretic Astarte.
Not even heretic, just didn't want to be a part of the Imperium. Like just
Well,
flat
that would
out,
be considered heresy.
no. The heresy thing comes after, and I'll explain why.
Oh.
At this point, during Horus Heresy, there was no such thing as heresy. The Horus Heresy was a term attached to that era afterwards by the religious aspect, because there was no religion. The imperial truth, which is what the emperor pushed, and which was his belief, was that there were no gods. There was no religion. He didn't think of himself as a god. He hated it when people referred to him as a god. One of his sons, Lorgar, was raised, like the planet he was raised on when he was scattered out, was very religious. So he was already extremely religious when he was found. But by then, the emperor was already like, we're secular. No religion. Religion's bad, because if he let his people believe in religion, that feeds the chaos gods. And his whole thing was to be done with the chaos gods and not have anything to do with the warp. So if you believe in religion and stuff like that, then you're more prone to worshiping chaos. He didn't even want himself being worshipped. It was outlawed completely. So when he found out his son completely made an entire planet, like a city, Hello everybody, this is Mack. So I'm adding this in post just to let you know that whenever I say Prospero, I meant Colchis. Yeah, I'm realizing this after recording and in editing that I said Prospero this whole time when I meant Colchis. Prospero is not his home planet, and the place that got burnt and made an example of was Monarchia, the city. So please remember that. And it wasn't really even burnt, it was just razed to the ground, so I apologize in advance. So just ignore everything coming up. I don't want to keep going to Perturabo. Lorgar's, I don't know if it's like their home planet. I think it's their home planet. But Prospero is the name. It was entirely dedicated to the emperor and in religious. It was like an entire religious city. Pretty much think of the Vatican, but for the emperor. Right? Specifically for the emperor. So giant statues of the emperor and stuff, all to worship him and whatever.
A whole city for the emperor.
Yeah, because technically the emperor is a god. He does have like godlike abilities. You know, he's a perpetual. He's the most powerful psyker. He doesn't have any negative effects from being a psyker. Like, he won't get possessed or anything like that. He's completely immune to the warp. So when he figured out that Lorgar was worshiping him and stuff, he forced the Ultramarines, who didn't want to do this, by the way, who hated this and regretted it immensely, including the Primarch, he forced the Ultramarines to completely destroy the city and just raze it to the ground. And it was called the Burning of Prospero. And that's what started the Horus Heresy, was Lorgar was like, what the fuck? I did this for you, Dad, and now you just destroyed everything? Like, I'm heartbroken. He felt completely betrayed. So he just, to the Emperor, he's like, fine, I promise I won't worship you anymore or whatever. So he's like, okay, well, if you're not a god, I'll go worship the real gods, and started worshiping the Chaos gods after Erebus from Horus's legion. Or is it Horus? Hold on. Where's Erebus from? I don't remember what legion Erebus is from, but Erebus basically went up to Lorgar and was like, hey, Lorgar, here's Chaos. They can help you out and be your god. And he was like, okay, cool. I'll worship Chaos now. And then Lorgar ended up convincing, or not really convincing, but almost like tricking Horus into worshiping Chaos, into being corrected by Chaos.
That was my next question, is if Lorgar had been so wronged, why wasn't it called the Lorgar heresy?
Yeah, because Horus was the first Primarch to be rediscovered. So he's not the first one made, or not the first legion, but he was the first one to be recovered. So he was the Emperor's favorite. Everyone loved him. Like, all the other Primarchs except for Corvus Corax loved him and thought he was awesome and great.
And we're talking about Horus still, correct?
Yeah, Horus.
Okay.
So he was, besides Sanguinius, he was the most loved, the most revered. So he was given by the end of the Great Crusade, which is the Great Crusade was created so that they can basically take over all of the planets in their galaxy, and make them imperial worlds, while also finding the lost Primarchs at the same time. So as they were doing this, the first one that they found was Horus, and Horus basically became the first one to take control of his legion, the Luna Wolves. They were called the Luna Wolves at the time because at the time what happened was the Emperor needed to take over all the genetic data and manipulation technology that the Luna Society had, because there was like a whole different society on Luna that was separated from Terra. So at first the Emperor was like, join us, help us out, but they were like a tech cult, like a gene cult or whatever, and they were like, nah, fuck you, Emperor, we're gonna do our own thing. So the Emperor's like, okay, we're just gonna take it by force then. Completely took over Luna, the moon, using Horus's legion, who were then called Luna Wolves. And then after Horus was discovered, he renamed them to the Sons of Horus. And then he gets corrupted by Lorgar and the Chaos Gods. And then what happens is he creates a plan with a bunch of some other Primarchs that were not happy with the Emperor at the time, like Angron and Mortarion and Fulgrim. And they came up with this plan to not only kill... they came up with a plan to kill the loyalists within their own legion. So what they did is they basically faked an emergency or something, or like or something on this planet called Istvan, and they had to investigate it. So they sent down all their loyalists to do whatever, and then when the loyalists got there, they opened fire and just murdered them all.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so they killed all of the loyalists. The loyalists that, were fighting and whatever, got the message out to Terra that Horus and the other legions went traitor.
Now, who were the loyalists that they killed? Was it like Ultramarines, or was it just anyone that answered the signal?
The loyalists who were there at the time were Raven Guard, the Iron Hands, and the Salamanders. So they were the ones that got the most screwed over by like they had their numbers reduced the most and weren't as active during the Horus Heresy because of it, because they were trying to rebuild and stuff.
Yeah.
And even the Raven Guard had a bunch of cool lore about rebuilding their legion and having weird mutated chaos monsters be results of it. So they got royally messed up because they were brought there to help as well, along with all of the loyalists still attached to the traitor legions. Because, like, for example, the Death Guard, the World Eaters, and the Word Bearers and stuff, they all still had people who were loyal to the Emperor, because a lot of those Space Marines originally were born on Terra and were commanded by the Emperor before given to their Primarchs. So a lot of them are completely 100% loyal to the Emperor first because the Emperor was there first. But others, like all the newer recruits after the Primarchs were discovered, were taken from the Primarchs' homeworld, or the surrounding worlds around their homeworld where they were discovered. So like the Space Wolves were all taken from Fenris. Salamanders were taken from Vulcan's planet, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. Where's it here? Blood Angels were taken from Baal. Dark Angels were taken from Caliban. Stuff like that. So all of the ones who were taken from their Primarchs' planets were loyal to the Primarchs and whatever the Primarchs did, and the ones that were born on Terra were loyal to the Emperor. So all the Terran-born ones, there were some other, non-Terran-born ones that were loyal as well, but most of the Terran-born ones were loyal, were killed, along with the Raven Guard, Iron Hands, and Salamanders. So that's what they call the Drop Site Massacre. You'll hear that a lot, is the Drop Site Massacre as being a big turning point. That's how the Horus Heresy started, because before that it was just the Great Crusade. And then after the Horus Heresy ended, with the death of Horus and the death of Sanguinius, and the near death of the Emperor having to be put onto the Golden Throne, which, for those who don't know, is in order to protect Terra. There's something called the Golden Throne, which powers this machine, this alien machine that, the AdMech don't even know what it does. The Mechanicus don't even know where it came from or what its origin is. Basically, what it does is it creates this barrier around the planet that protects it from chaos. I don't know if it's around the planet or just specifically around the Imperial City, but it protects it from chaos and from the warp. And it's powered by the Emperor. So the Emperor has to sit on the throne in order to power it. And what happens is every day, thousands or millions or whatever, however many, I think it's just thousands of Psykers are sacrificed in order to keep the Emperor alive and to keep him powered on the Golden Throne. Because what it's doing is it's taking the Emperor's corpse and draining it of his psychic power. So they have to keep rejuvenating the Emperor with psychic power in order to keep it running, so that they can protect themselves from the warp. Because to them, if the Emperor dies, they're fucked. The demons are going to come and invade Earth again, just like they did back in the Horus Heresy, and they're just going to fuck everything up again. Right? That's what they think is going to happen. Some people believe...
What is a Psyker?
Psyker is just someone with psychic abilities. What they do is they...
Is it just like a special person, or could it be just like regular Jimmy Two Shoes up at the side of the street? It's like,
no,
that guy has some Psyker powers.
Think of it as like wizards from Harry Potter. You have to be born with it.
Okay, so it could be Jimmy Two Shoes, but they wave the problem detector or the Psyker detector's like, oh, he's one, and then they take him.
Yeah. So what they do is they are connected to the warp, so they can use the warp and its abilities and its power in order to
kind of like how Tenno used the Void.
Yeah, because the Void is pretty much just the Warframe version of the warp. And the warp is just, if you enter the warp with no protection, you will immediately be bombarded with chaos and probably possessed and infiltrated by demons immediately, because you just have no protection and it's just crazy. Because what the warp is a manifestation of human emotions, or not even human emotions, but like the beings of the universe, the emotions of the beings of the universe. So since there's so much death and war constantly, the warp is fucked and absolutely crazy and just absolutely just rampant with horrible evil, which is what I was saying earlier. Like, basically, when things were more peaceful and stuff, the Chaos Gods were kind of looked at as more benevolent and not as crazy demonic as they are now.
Noted.
Now, where was I? Primarchs. So there's 20 Primarchs. 2 of them were lost. A lot of them think that one of them is a traitor, one of them is not a traitor. My personal belief is that the non-traitor one was sent to hunt down the other traitor Primarch, and then in order to hide the fact that, one of them went traitor, they erased the existence of both of them. So what I think happened is either the 2nd or the 11th Primarch turned traitor, and then the other one was sent off to find them or kill them or, make sure that they weren't
sorted
around.
out.
Yeah. Or the alternative theory is that there's a rumor that they're actually trapped under the palace. I think that's boring, because then it doesn't account for the other one as well. Because what happens is it's not chaos. Like, it doesn't seem like it's chaos, because they are talked about with, or if it is chaos, the Emperor didn't tell them. It's not known by the other Primarchs why the legions are gone, which is why I think Rupert Gilliman still sees them both with respect. In that one mention I told you about how he has the different thrones with all the heraldry for each Primarch. Yeah. So I do believe that when one of them went traitor or whatever, fell to chaos or whatever they did that was against the Emperor's will, the other one was sent to kill them, deal with them, and the Emperor wanted to hide it from all the other ones, so they were just like, they're both gone, can't tell you about them, you're not allowed to talk about them anymore, and they were forced to not. And when they tried to, Malkador, who is the best human psyker in the Imperium, who was the Emperor's best friend, was basically almost killed Horus. So this human, this tiny little human who was just a psyker, but was the most powerful psyker, like human psyker on the planet, or of all of, the Empire of Man, was able to sit there and just crush, like, Horus's windpipe with just his mind, to the point where Horus literally almost died in front of all the other Primarchs if it wasn't for the Primarchs stopping Malkador.
Oh my god, he had the force.
Yeah, so it was the Khan, Jagatai Khan, the Primarch of the White Scars, Rubuti Gilman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, and Horus were all there talking about the missing legions and how they wish they were still here. And then Malkador was like, don't talk about it. And he's like, and then Horus was like, but they should be blah, blah, blah. And then now while he's in the middle of talking and trying to give Malkador shit, he's just like, gets force choked like he's Vader. So yeah. Now another thing that we should probably talk about is Alfarius. Alfarius is the 20th Primarch, but at some point he splits into two people, and he's like a twin. Now Alfarius dies, and like during the Horus Heresy, and it is said that Omegon becomes Alfarius, like starts to, or vice versa. So one of them actually dies, and the other one starts pretending to be Alfarius. So it is a big meme nowadays that everyone is Alfarius. So, like, if you talk to someone from the Alpha Legion, which is their legion, they will, and like vehemently, tell everybody like I am Alfarius. They all think they're Alfarius. Well, then it's really tough. It's another one of those things where it's like, there's two Primarchs we can't talk about, but then there's also the 20th Primarch who's so weird and creepy and like messed up that you just don't even know what to think about it. You don't know if he's even a real person. And like is there actually two of them, and did actually one of them actually die, or is he a perpetual? Like it's really weird. But so yeah, that's why I say there's technically 21 Primarchs. Two of them are missing, and then Alfarius split into two beings. But, and here's where the lore comes out, is after the Horus Heresy and the Emperor is no longer able to talk to his people and whatever, the Imperial cult becomes a thing. So everyone starts to believe that the Empire or the Emperor is a god, because the Emperor is not there to tell people no, and all the Primarchs leave to do their own thing. They either go off into the warp to hunt the other Primarchs or to hunt demons, or they die, or they get knocked into comatose states like the Lion and like Rubuta Gilliman before they came back. So there's nobody there to tell anybody the Imperial truth anymore, that gods don't exist and that you shouldn't and worship the God Emperor as the god, just worship, he's just the Emperor. So because of this, there is now an aspect of the Emperor who can bless people. So he can revive people from the dead and give them godlike powers as well, like Saint Celestine, who is basically the Primarch of the Battle Sisters, the Sisters of Battle, the Adeptus Sororitas, which we will get into a different episode, because that's more lore to just spill onto everybody. And he's able to talk to people as well. So in Space Marine 2, spoilers, there's a part at the end where, or near the end, where Titus is getting blasted with a bunch of like warp energy and stuff, and like there's like it's getting really bright and it's like shining in his face, and he's like ah, and then it goes all white and he passes out. And there's a voice. Now, when the game first came out, it was attributed to Calgar, but this isn't true. It wasn't supposed to be. It was a mistake. And it's someone saying, "Rise, son of Gilliman." It doesn't match Calgar's voice actor. It doesn't match any other character in the game. And then when they updated it, it got changed to just voice. So, I think it was even confirmed by a developer that was the Emperor speaking to Titus and giving him protection from the warp, which explains why Titus is immune to the warp in both the first game and the second game. It's because he's not a blank, which some people know what a blank is. I'm not going to explain what a blank is right now, but a blank is just someone who is, immune to the warp. He is just protected by the Emperor, and this is proven when he is spoken to.
Son of Gilliman.
Yeah. Not only that, but it is theorized that if the Emperor was allowed to die, that he would not only would he be reborn because he's a perpetual, but he would be reborn as even like an actual god, like on the same level as a chaos god. Like he would become the human chaos god because he is worshipped so heavily by the entirety of the Imperium. Now here's the thing. This is why most Space Marine legions and chapters, do not worship the Emperor as a god. They respect him and they see him as the supreme leader and whatever, but not all of them worship him as a god. Only select few do. Like the Black Templars worship him as a god. The Grey Knights worship him as a god. The Death Watch, I think, unfortunately have to worship him as a god, even though they're made up of other legions. But like the Inquisitors and stuff, actually even the Inquisitors don't even necessarily worship him as a god because they don't have to. They're the most powerful beings in the galaxy aside from the Primarchs themselves, like just in like political power, I mean, and the High Lords of Terra. But High Lords of Terra is again something else for a different time.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be a part two because there's a lot.
Yeah, we're already at an hour 40, and I don't even think we've gone through everything. We went through what a Primarch. I know we did actually kind of go through everything except for types of Marines. Yeah, that explained the Primarchs. That explained the Emperor. Explained the Horus Heresy. Yeah, the Horus Heresy just a little bit. Now, in recent times, what happened was back before Rebude Gilliman was basically comatose and almost dead because he got stabbed in the neck with a poison knife, and put into stasis. He created the Codex Astartes, which is the rule book that most chapters were supposed to abide by. So the legions got split from hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands of Space Marines into just 1,000 Space Marines. So each chapter got 1,000. The veteran chapters, or the veteran companies and stuff, and the veteran soldiers of each legion became the chapter, whereas all of the other Marines were created into the successor chapters. Now this is what is called the second founding. And that's what foundings are. Is anytime successor chapters are created, it is a new founding. That 21st founding that the Crayon Eaters were a part of is a real founding. And most of the chapters that were created within the 21st founding have severe problems with them. That's why they're called the cursed founding, because they have issues. Like one of them is the Legion of the Damned, which are the Ghost Space Marines. They're the ones that are that are dressed in all black, have fire, like hot rod fire aesthetics on them, skulls and bones on their armor, and they're also on fire, like constantly on fire. And what happens is when they're needed the most, like when something like a big battle's happening, they just appear out of nowhere and just start fighting, and as soon as the fighting's over, they disappear again. And their lore is that they are a chapter that got trapped in the warp and then turned into these ghosts. Now, when they were a chapter, they were the most hated chapter of the Imperium because they were just dicks. They would do whatever they could to achieve victory and didn't care about human lives and stuff. So the lore is that they were basically created as these warp ghosts to redeem themselves. So they're constantly in pain and live a tortured existence, but still fight for the Imperium and for the Empire. And then that leads into Rebude Gilliman wanting the Archmagos of the Adeptus Mechanicus, Belisarius Cawl, to create a new form of Space Marine in order to bolster their losses from the Horus Heresy. So over the 10,000 years that Gilliman was comatose, because he went comatose pretty shortly after the Horus Heresy ended, Belisarius Cawl was given this project to create new Space Marines, which are the Primaris Marines. So a lot of the Primaris Marines, and you'll actually notice this in the game, Space Marine 2, are actually from the Horus Heresy era, but kept in stasis for the 10,000 years that Roboute Guilliman was gone, because Belisarius Cawl wasn't allowed to deploy the Primaris until Roboute came back, which took 10,000 years to happen, or 8,000 years, just a long time for him to come back.
So Primaris Marines was because they couldn't keep up with the demand of doing the old generation, because after so many, like from the first founding all the way up to 21st, after tens of thousands of years of basically evolutions of genetic stuff, defects started happening. So Primaris are a new breed that are different, tougher, stronger than first founders.
More stable as well, which is
Okay.
part of what you're talking about. Is the first founding, it's not necessarily that they kept getting worse as time went on, it's just that it kept getting more noticeable, like how bad their problems were. So that's why Roboute Guilliman was like, we need new Marines, like we need to replace them with the next step in human evolution. Now, this is technically heretical to the Adeptus Mechanicus, because to the Adeptus Mechanicus, you're not allowed to improve on... You're not allowed to create new technology. All technology that exists at the time of the creation of the Adeptus Mechanicus is the only technology that's allowed to exist.
Don't you mean Codex Astartes?
No, Adeptus Mechanicus, because the Adeptus Mechanicus is a completely separate faction from the Imperium of Man. They were technically they're only allied with the Imperium. Like, they could technically break off from the Imperium at any point, and the Imperium would be fucked. And the only reason why that they work together is because they were too valuable to kill. So the Empire was like, the Emperor put up with them worshiping him as the Messiah, or the Omnissiah, which is basically robot Jesus. They basically saw the Emperor as Jesus, and their god, the machine god, sent the Emperor down to help them. Normally he would kill anybody who worshipped him, but since they had so much powerful technology and these vast worlds that could create giant machines of war, he was like, you can worship me, but you gotta work with me here. Supply my army with weapons and armor and equipment.
I think we can be friends.
Yeah. So that's what Belisarius Cawl, he's part of that faction. So to them, it's very heretical to do this, so that's why they're doing it in secret.
I was about to say, so if making a Primaris is heretical, then how long until that is elaborated upon and then turned into a new story?
Well, Cawl can pretty much just say, "Oh, I found this. Like, I didn't do anything. Like, I didn't create this. All I did was find schematics, like ancient schematics that we haven't found before, and use those to create these guys." So that's what he says. Like, all the new weapons, all the new armor that came with the new Primaris. What he tells people pretty much is just, these were always here. I'm just creating them. But to the people who actually know what's going on, like Roboute Guilliman, he doesn't care, because he doesn't care about that part. That to him, that's not heresy, because he doesn't believe in the religion aspect, right? That's only
he just believes in bolstering the Emperor's numbers.
Yeah, it's only the admechs that care about that whole technology being, increased. So they're all tricked into making all this new Primaris stuff, thinking that it's already been created by the Omnissiah, but Call's just like, no, I'm just a sneaky little bugger who likes to do what I want, and I have permission from the Primarch, who's the son of the Emperor. Now, Belisarius Cawl actually does worship the Emperor as a god still, and thinks he's the Omnissiah, and his whole reasoning for doing this stuff against the will of the god is like, well, if the son of Jesus is telling me I can do it, I can do it. I'm allowed to do it. It's the machine god's will at that point. So he makes the Primaris, who are just bigger, stronger, tougher Marines. Now, by the way, just to go back, they do not have adamantium bones, Marines. We have discovered this. I was thinking of something else. I'm pretty sure I'm thinking of the Primaris Marines, who have an extra implant that coats their bones to be stronger and unbreakable. Anyway, continuing. So these, the process of making Primaris is a lot easier for people who aren't Space Marines than it is for people who are Space Marines. There's not as much of a death, like, because to create a Space Marine there is already a chance for you to die just by the process. So to create a Primaris Marine, there's less of a chance if you are not augmented at all. But if you are a previously augmented Space Marine who is being upgraded to a Primaris, you literally have to be ripped open. Like, cut in half, split open, like, everything just removed and replaced in order to put the new organs in order to make you bigger and taller and stuff. Because regular Space Marines are like 8 feet or something, or like 7 feet tall as the tallest, and then Primaris are like 9 feet tall. So Primaris are like 2 feet taller than firstborn Space Marines.
That's wild.
Yeah, so that's why you see Titus have those giant scars on his body, because those are the Primaris scars. Now he still had similar scars from like his original augmentations and stuff, but like that giant gash in the middle of his chest is literally from where he got split open and his rib cage cracked in half and stuff. So they're given new implants and stuff, which I'm not going to really go over because it's not like they get something attached to their heart, which is when they're about to die, they pretty much get like a cocktail of drugs pumped into their body that lets them basically kick back from death and like keep them from dying if their heart's about to stop. Their hearts, so each heart has its own, I believe. It's called like the furnace or something.
Yeah, the Belisarian furnace, and then apparently they get steel coils wrapped around their joints to reinforce them.
Ah, yes, that's what I was talking about. So they have, their older tendons and stuff are reinforced with steel. So that's what makes Primaris different. And then obviously Dreadnoughts are just Space Marines that were almost dead, but not dead enough to not serve. So they weren't brain dead. As long as you're not brain dead, you can still serve the Emperor, and you'll be put in a Dreadnought. And Dreadnoughts are used as storytellers. So when they're not in use, when they're not in use being like not used in war, not used as a tank or something, they're pretty much brought out for history lessons for new recruits to the chapter. So when they get all the neophytes and the initiates in, they'll bring out one of the old ass fucking Dreadnoughts from the Horus Heresy era, and they'll get them to tell them stories about, battles that they weren't seeing, they never saw, and heroes that were forgotten and stuff like that. So they're pretty much like...
And why it's an honor to become a Marine.
Yeah. So that's why it's such a big deal to become a Dreadnought. Now, the thing with Primaris Dreadnoughts is it's a little sadder in the fact that they're better, they're stronger, they're just bigger, like in every way. Bigger guns, bigger size, bigger coffin. They don't have stubby little midget legs. Now, the downside to being a Primaris Dreadnought is you're used as a battery. So whereas regular Dreadnoughts can pretty much live forever as long as they are not damaged and they're put into stasis between missions and stuff, they can pretty much live for as long as possible. But Primaris Dreadnoughts, since they work at such a higher efficiency than regular Dreadnoughts, they use their pilots as batteries. So it pretty much puts a time limit on how long you can use that Space Marine before the Space Marine is just incoherent, can't think, goes insane, and it's just like a pile of mush inside, just
goes brain dead.
Yeah, vegetative. Sometimes they go crazy. Sometimes they get like memories resurface from their old lives, before they were Space Marines, stuff like that. It's kind of cool. There's a couple.
Sad. And sad.
All the Dreadnoughts get the most banging, like hardcore badass lines too.
Well, they're just they're angry, and I love that.
Yeah. So Primaris Dreadnoughts have to be their pilots have to be replaced more often because they just drain them of life over the course of their use.
Well, I tell you what, Mac, you have been very informative to me. You've now opened my eyes, and I might go buy me a combat pack here soon.
Okay, well, talk to me before you do, and I'll let you know which one's worth.
We're getting there. I might go heretical just because there's not enough of that around here, but we'll see.
Well, I encourage people to go and go to Luton below, check out his more lore videos. Because if I said anything that caught your attention and that you want to know more about it, go check him out because he'll have a lot more in depth, or just a lot more insight into it than I do. I just have a couple wiki tabs open just to double check myself so I'm not saying something wrong. But most of the stuff I say is off the top of my head. So if I do get something wrong, just let me know below. This is mainly just to give people an idea of what the lore is like, so that they're not completely clueless when they're playing the games. And I guess just one last thing I'll say is just I'll spoil the first game really quick. So the first game
It's only been out for 13 years.
Yeah, the first game is Space Marine 2. This is just what you need to know before playing the second game. Is Titus has another squad, including Leandros and another sergeant. They fight the orcs, and then closer to the end of the game, it is revealed that Khorne, the world eaters, show up. They are the Khorne chaos worshipping legion. They show up with their demons and with their chaos space marines, and they start fucking shit up. And then it's revealed that this chaos sorcerer named Nemeroth is behind it, and he has this artifact, which apparently is like warp artifact, and the whole thing is that you need to get it back or whatever. Titus gets trapped in the warp with whatever his name is, and Nemenoth.
Anemone.
So the whole thing about him being a traitor and stuff and being heretical is the fact that he was able to enter the warp but not be corrupted, like enter the warp unprotected but not be corrupted by chaos. And we already know this because he's protected by the Emperor. So at the end of the first game, he gets taken away by the Inquisitors in order to be punished, pretty much, for heresy, or to be like inspected and whatever. So as penance, he gets put. Well, at first he gets like just locked up and tortured for a long time, and then eventually, when the Inquisitor who trapped him and locked him up falls to chaos, they're just like, oh, well, maybe we should go to his prisons and release all those Space Marines he has in prison, and one of them's Titus. So they're like, okay, Titus, we're not going to let you go back to the Ultramarines because you still did weird stuff, so we're going to put you in the Death Watch as a Black Shield. Black Shield just meaning that they're not allowed to use the heraldry of their chapter. They're pretty much punished by not using the heraldry, and they're forced to be in the Death Watch as penance, even though the Death Watch is normally used as like an honorable... it's pretty much just joining SEAL Team 6. Like, that's what the Death Watch is, Like, the best people from all the best chapters are taken and made into kill teams, small little kill teams, and sent on suicide missions. And you're supposed to serve with them for a while before going back to your own chapter. But Titus is, like, stuck there for, like, 200 years, serving with the Death Watch. So 200 years go by, and then you do that mission on Karaka with the virus bomb at the beginning of Space Marine 2. He ends up getting, fucked up by the Carnifex. He gets one of his hearts, or both of his hearts, like, destroyed or something, or almost nearly destroyed. So in order to save him, and since the Primaris process is pretty much a last resort thing anyway, like, it would pretty much kill... It has a high chance of killing a Space Marine anyway. They're just like, fuck it. In order to save him, let's make him a Primaris and see if that'll work. So, like, putting
And
that
it does.
Belisarian furnace is, like, the main thing that helps him, because that's what pumps the juices into him to keep him alive a little bit longer. So they crack him open, turn him into a Primaris, he survives, and then they're like, okay, since you survived and you're a Primaris now, we're going to let you go back to your chapter and redeem yourself. Like, officially. But we are demoting you from a captain of the second company to a lieutenant of the second company. So he becomes the lieutenant of 6th Squad.
Talassa.
Yeah. Or no, not Talassa. Talassa's one of the other ones. One of the other squads. Well, because, like, the 6th Squad, like, all of those Space Marines you play as, like, in the operation stuff, you're all part of the same squad. Or, like, the same division or whatever you want to call it.
Just different fire teams.
Yeah, and then the leader of your company, leader of your company is the captain. You were a lieutenant, so there's multiple lieutenants within that company. So I think there's 4 squads, and he is the first lieutenant of or the 6th lieutenant of 6 squad. That's, I believe, how it works. So he technically has like 10 Marines under him, or 20 Marines under him, something like that he has control over. But in the game, for gameplay purposes, they only allow you to have 2 other Marines with you.
We only get to interact with the 6 playable ones.
Yeah, and since you're new and stuff, the captain's like, I have your men doing other stuff, so I can only give you so many for your job.
Which, it's a lame excuse, but we'll accept it.
Yeah, and it seems that, what's his face? Oh, what are their names?
Captain Akaran,
No, your squad
Who?
members.
Carrion, and Gadriel.
Gadriel, thank you. Gadriel was actually the leader of your squad before you joined, because he's like, hey, Gadriel, Lieutenant Titus will be taking over your command of your squad. So that was neat. Oh,
The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
Lieutenants control multiple squads, not just one squad. It's my bad.
The Codex Astartes does not support this action.
But I look forward.
But
to
I
it
am
anyway.
looking forward to it.
Yeah,
But I am looking forward to it.
Alrighty. Okay, I think we're just gonna end the episode there. I've been, I got a little bit off track and I didn't touch on everything, but that's okay. Like I said, this was mainly just to get.
But we got down my list, and we even added in the Horus Heresy, which I didn't even think about that, but that is something I did desperately need to know about.
Yeah, you did need to know a little bit about it to know about the Primarchs and stuff. So.
But now I have a list of them, and maybe looking at those Primarchs will help me decide a army that probably will suit me, because if I like I kind of look at it as like a town government. If I like the governor of this place, I might like this place. But the Black Templars is part of the Imperial Fist, so.
Well, yes, but if you think of it this way, the Imperial Fists were split into 3 chapters. Like the original Imperial Fists were split into 3 chapters. The veterans stayed the Imperial Fists. The religious fanatics, who were the Crusaders, got turned into the Black Templars, and all the new recruits were turned into the Crimson Fists.
Noted.
So you can still like them and consider them like badass and cool, because like, at least with me, I have this kind of stigmatism towards second founding chapters. I'm just like, I don't want to make an army out of second founding chapters because they're not as cool. But the only ones that really beat that for me, and I think rise above the rest, are the ones who are the second founding chapters created from the Horus Heresy legions, because they have the most history and actually were, like pretty much each like I said, like I was telling you before when we were talking before, pretty much each company within a legion got turned into its own chapter. So first company stayed the Ultramarine, second company became an Ultramarine successor, and then all the other companies became successors on their own.
We'll have to do a deep dive on chapters and successors.
Yeah, have it a little bit more tightly.
No, we'll do the whole Squarespace thing and the whole me chart, and we'll do the family tree of all of the...
more organized is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not just rambling off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's more structured.
We'll put that on the list, maybe. But, of course, we want to hear suggestions from the audience. If you want to hear something about some specific game, topic, whatever it be, let us know down in the comments. We're ready, willing, and able to listen.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us for the 4th episode of God Roll Podcast. I have been your host, Mack, joined by Iain.
That's
Josh is a shithead and didn't want to join us because he has a life, unlike us, apparently. So, love you, Josh, and love you, everybody else. Please subscribe,
Absolutely.
comment, do all that good stuff.
Hit the notification bell.
Yeah. And we will see you next time.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.